my name is Daryl, and this is Programming in Any Language. We're working with C# right now, but the principles are the same. Master these principles, and you can easily jump from one language to another very easily. Today we're going to take a look at the concept of scope as it pertains to variables. Scope? What's scope? Basically, when you create a variable in memory, depending upon where it is initialized, the variable may be invisible to certain routines. If it's invisible, then a routine without permission can't use it. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, understand that we need to realize that when we declare a variable, you need to declare it before you can use it. Where we declare it determines how it can be seen. I've got a small program here, forms all put together, but there's no code written for it. But basically, it's going to allow us to enter a first name and a last name. I've got two buttons set up, one to read the text boxes and then one to display the output in this little label down here. I've got two buttons on purpose because I want to display and show you scope in code. So I'm going to go to the code window right now. In fact, I'm going to go right to the read text box window. I'm going to create a line. I call this the button read, as you can see right there. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a string variable called str first name. That's declaring the variable, and we'll use this thing. Oops, I need to put string in front of it, obviously, to give it that type. And I'm just gonna give it a comment saying holds first name. And I'm going to create another string called string last name. And it's going to hold the last name. I'm then going to read the text boxes. So a little comment here, read text boxes into memory. And we'll simply say that str first name is equal to txt, which I called first name, and I labeled the text box text first name dot text. We'll go to the property of that thing and bring it in. I'll do the same thing with the last name, str last name, and I'll bring that thing in. So now I've read the text boxes into memory, and that's the extent of it. What's happening here is I've created variables, not in the global area, but in the read area, and only this button can actually see it. So I'm going to go up here and go back to my design window and hit my display output here, and it's going to create another little routine. What I'm going to say here is I would like to take str. I'm going to create something called like a new string str output, we'll call it, and I'm going to say holds full name. I'm then going to actually operate on the variable memory I took in before, and I'm going to say that str output is equal to str first name Let's have a little trouble with spelling this thing here. Let's try this to the capital STR first name plus I'm going to concatenate the last name to it, and then I'm going to put in another plus here and say str last name and hit that with a semicolon. Then I'm going to put it out. I'm going to say label output dot text is equal to str output, and ended at that. And you can see I've got errors in this thing. I'm going to save this thing right now. Save all. There are definitely errors here, and the errors are basically it's the str first name does not exist in the current content. It doesn't exist here. When I establish these two variables, I establish them as local variables by assigning them inside the button, so they can't be seen by anything else. So this thing actually Cannot see it in this particular routine here. And I've got something else called this right here. Now, could I declare some variables? Yeah, let's go ahead and, let's just leave it like this for now and go with this. We'll try and run it. And of course, it won't run. It'll error out. So that's basically what that thing's been doing for us. When you declare a variable within a method like our click event, only the code within that method can actually see it. If we had created the variable as global variables, sometimes called field variables, by the way, then the two methods would have no difficulty seeing the contents. Now, there's a couple things we could do. One would be to simply take these variables we've established here and simply establish them up here in the class area. I certainly could do that. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll take these guys out. Let's do a Control X on them and lay them in up here. You'll notice the errors all went away. This routine probably will work at this point in time now. We'll type in Daffy Duck. Read the text boxes, display the output, and there it is. Daffy Duck is sitting in there. Another thing we could do is have local variables in the routines that pass the data between the global areas in each method. Check this out. I'm going to go back to placing these variables back into the routine where they were initially established. And we get rid of those errors right here. But we have these errors back here. What I also want to do, though, is I want to create the same variables down here. And I'll bring them down. I'll put them right in front of this guy, which is our string output, and leave it like this. What's happening here now, we should be able to get rid of this error. I'm not so sure why we can't, because we certainly can establish variables with the same name in these particular areas here. So we've got that sitting there. So let's hold on a second. Yeah, you can see I still have issues right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and create a couple of global variables. And I'm going to call them string fname, str fname, and string lname. I capitalize this N over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take these things, read these text box in, and then I'm going to move them. Str fname is now going to be equal to str first name. And str lname is going to be equal to str last name. So I'm basically sampling the variables here, reading the data into these variables, and then I'm moving those variables up to the global variables. Now in this particular routine, I'm going to create a routine that's going to say, okay, str first name is going to be equal to str fname. And str last name is going to be equal to str lname. And I got to get rid of these x's here. I'm talking to have x's on the backs of these things. I don't want that there. And we get rid of our errors. It's a little convoluted way to do this. Usually I don't want to do it like this, but what I'm trying to establish the fact is that you can have the same names in routines when they're local. In other words, str first name, str last name, in this particular button read method, can only be seen by this method here. And this particular str first name and str last name can only be seen by this particular method here. So we had to use something a little different and actually send these things off into a global area. So they're being read in here, popping up to here, and this particular routine is grabbing them and bringing them down. And then we can run our program and it should work. Save all here. Put Daffy Duck in there again. read the text boxes, display the output, and there it is. Let's put a breakpoint on this and see how this actually happens. What's the first thing that's going to go on? We're going to read the text box. So we'll put our breakpoint in that particular routine. I'm going to set a breakpoint up here so we can see it. And there it is. Let's run this code now and see what happens. So we come up, we're going to put Daffy Duck in there. We're going to read text boxes. What's going to happen is we're going to step through this and we'll get down to this reading this first name. And I'm going to actually create a method for this. So I'm going to add a watch. I'm going to add a watch to this one too. I'll bring those down here. They're in my other screen right now. So let's bring it over here and you can actually see this, what happens here. And if I hit F11 now, we can actually see that data come in. Daffy is getting into that first name and Duck went into that last name. Now we can also set up watches for these right away. So I'll go ahead and do that. We'll add a watch to the STRL name and STRF name. They have nothing in them right now. And I will go ahead and I will press F11. And Daffy goes into that one, and Duck goes into that one. Great, okay, that's cool. And now what we've got Daffy Duck, and we've read the actual data right now. So let's go a little bit further. I'm going to actually put a breakpoint in this particular routine. So we'll stop there, bring it up. We'll hit F11 to step through. What happened to my code here? It's in there someplace. There it is. Okay, it's right here. Let me just move it off the screen for a second while I get this thing reestablished to where we actually want it. There, now we can see it again. And I'll bring down the program that's running. And we're going to hit display output at this point in time. So I'm going to hit that. Display output jumps down over to here and goes down with these two areas are established. And I'm going to right click on this guy and establish a watch here as well. So let's add watch. That creates another watch, which is null. And I'll create the last name as well. And add a watch here. And notice they have nothing in them right now because they are different. They belong to this particular routine here. They're very different from these two, even though they're spelled the same. As I do an F11, Daffy comes in. Daffy comes out. Let's do a watch on the output. And we'll do a concatenation here. And that worked. And we can send it out to Daffy Duck. And finish our routine. And there it is. It works. So the first routine using local variables was relatively clear. The second, where we had to move data back and forth between the two methods and the global variables, seemed a bit crazy. Why would you want to do that? You wouldn't. Why not just put all your variables up at the top in the global area and be done with it? It seems easiest. Well, it is. And that is often the direction new programmers go, but it's not a good idea in the long run. As your programs get bigger and more complex, having all your variables in one place, whether you need them or not, ends up being very error prone. You might have a routine that adds data to a variable. And then there's another routine that might make use of that data in that variable, but change it. And then you have a third routine which comes back and expects the data to look like it was when the first routine used it. And it's not, it's changed. Well, very long story short, your program is not working correctly. You got bugs in it. Now, don't let that bother you right now. We'll figure out ways to handle this. But we're going to learn other techniques where we can use to make good use of the variables and a good use of the local variables. We just need to learn a little bit more first. What you need to take out of this video is that 1. All routines can see the contents of global variables, all of them. 2. Local variables can only be seen by the routines they are declared in. And 3. Local variable names don't have to be different from the other names in a routine. You can have the same name in several different variables. 4. It is less problematic to use local variables in general. We'll learn more about techniques in the future, but for now, this should explain the difference between global and local variables. Thanks for watching. If you get a chance, please subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.